Welcome back to the Wild Files, the podcast where we unpack the people side of MSP life. I'm your host, Jane Matthews, founder of Wildcat Careers, where we work exclusively with MSPs to fix broken hiring processes, craft cultures people actually want to work in, and build teams that, succeed. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about something a lot of MSPs still massively underestimate. Candidates build opinions about your business long before they ever join it. And honestly, most of that judgment happens during recruitment itself, not onboarding, not on probation, not after they join recruitment. Because before candidates ever experience your culture officially, they experience your operational behavior. That means how you communicate, how quickly you respond, how organized interviews feel, how leadership shows up, how aligned people sound internally, how decisions get made, how pressure feels. All of that becomes data, and candidates quietly build emotional conclusions from it. That matters massively. Because the strongest candidates are not simply evaluating salary anymore. They're evaluating environments. They are trying to predict, would working here feel stable? Would communication exist? Would leadership feel calm or chaotic? Would this environment feel emotionally sustainable? And recruitment answers those questions surprisingly quickly. And that's what we're unpacking today. Why recruitment is really operational behavior and motion. Why communication gaps damage trust. Why strong candidates assess leadership constantly. Why delayed feedback creates emotional uncertainty. And why candidates often know more about your operational maturity than businesses realize. Because candidates are not only listening to what MSPs say during recruitment. They're paying attention to how the business actually functions under pressure. So let's get into it. One of the biggest misconceptions inside MSP recruitment is thinking recruitment sits separately from operations. It does not. Recruitment is often the very first operational experience a candidate has with your MSP, which means candidates immediately begin analyzing the business through process. That includes response speed, scheduling, communication quality, leadership visibility, decision-making, internal alignment. And frankly, people are incredibly good at pattern recognition, particularly those experienced, strong candidates. They have seen enough environments now to recognize operational signals quickly. If communication feels chaotic early, candidates often assume operations probably feel chaotic too. You see, if interview stages constantly move, candidates assume internal alignment may be weak. If nobody can explain the role clearly, candidates assume operational expectations internally are probably unclear too. You see, candidates do not separate recruitment from operations. They see them as connected. And honestly, most of the time they're right. Because recruitment exposes operational maturity surprisingly quickly. That is why hiring processes matter so much. Not because candidates expect perfection, because candidates evaluate confidence, and operational confidence shapes trust hugely. Now, this part matters massively because most MSPs think they are heavily assessing candidates during interview. Meanwhile, candidates are assessing leadership just as carefully, possibly more carefully. They're paying attention to how leaders communicate, how emotionally present they are, how aligned they sound, how organized conversations feel, how pressure shows up. And recruitment becomes a live demonstration of leadership quality. And that's important because candidates do not simply join roles, they join environments. And leadership shapes environment more than anything else. I genuinely believe this. Candidates hire leaders before leaders hire candidates, particularly in MSPs, because MSP environments naturally contain pressure. There are escalations, client expectations, operational complexity, technical overload. Candidates already know that. So leadership confidence becomes emotionally important. People want to know, would working here under these leaders feel stable? Would communication exist? Would support exist? Would this environment feel permanently reactive? And recruitment answers those questions surprisingly quickly. Now, communication gaps create emotional uncertainty. One thing I think businesses massively underestimate is this: candidates interpret silence emotionally, not operationally. Businesses obviously often think we just had a busy week, but candidates experience uncertainty. And uncertainty damages trust quickly, particularly after positive interviews. And this happens constantly. You see, a candidate has a brilliant conversation, everyone feels positive, the energy's good, and then suddenly communication disappears for 5 days, or a week, or longer. Now, internally, the MSP may simply be overwhelmed, but candidates rarely interpret silence as they are just busy. Instead, they start wondering, did I say something wrong? Is leadership aligned? Do they actually know what they want? Would working there feel reactive too? See, this is why communication quality matters hugely, because recruitment momentum is emotional, not just operational. And emotional momentum disappears surprisingly quickly, especially with those strong candidates, because strong candidates usually already have options, which means operational confidence becomes incredibly important. You see, candidates can feel operational pressure. And this part fascinates me because candidates can often feel organizational pressure before leadership fully realizes how visible it's become externally. You can hear pressure in delayed responses, rushed interviews, confusing timelines, fragmented communication, emotionally distracted leadership. Candidates pick up on all of it, particularly experienced MSP professionals, because experienced MSP people know what operational overload feels like. They've lived it. They know what stretched environments sound like. They know what firefighting cultures feel like. And recruitment becomes a live operational preview. And that really matters because candidates are constantly asking themselves, would working here feel sustainable, not just exciting, sustainable? That is one of the biggest shifts in recruitment psychology. Now, let's go even deeper because delayed feedback damages more than recruitment timelines. It damages perception. Most businesses treat delayed feedback like an admin issue. Candidates experience it emotionally, and emotionally delayed feedback creates, confusion, particularly when interviews initially felt really positive. This matters because candidates project future operational experiences into recruitment. They think this: if communication feels difficult now, what would working there actually feel like? And frankly, that projection is usually fair because recruitment often mirrors operational maturity. Reactive businesses recruit reactively. Structured businesses, they recruit structurally. Clear businesses communicate clearly. That relationship matters hugely. Now, here is something I think MSPs need to understand more deeply. Candidates trust experience more than messaging, always. A business can say, we have a fantastic culture, but if recruitment feels slow, confusing, reactive, emotionally disorganized, candidates trust the experience more than the slogan. That is why recruitment matters so much, because recruitment validates or contradicts employer branding very quickly. And honestly, this is why some genuinely good MSPs still struggle to attract strong candidates, not because the culture is bad, but because the operational experience during recruitment feels inconsistent. That matters massively. So what do strong MSPs do differently? The strongest MSPs understand something really important. Recruitment is not separate from operational reputation. It is operational reputation in motion. That changes behavior massively. Strong MSPs, they communicate consistently, protect candidate momentum, keep leadership visible, clarify expectations, move decisively, not perfectly, consistently. And consistency creates confidence because confidence drives recruitment momentum, particularly with strong candidates. The best MSPs also understand recruitment emotionally. Candidates are humans navigating uncertainty, not tickets moving through a system. And emotionally intelligent recruitment processes massively outperform robotic ones. Always. Now, recruitment is culture in motion. I think this is probably the most important point in the entire episode. Recruitment is culture in motion. I'll say it again. It demonstrates how communication works, how pressure gets handled, how leadership behaves, how aligned teams feel, how organized operations are. You see, candidates experience all of that before employment actually begins, which means recruitment becomes a live demonstration of business maturity. This is why strong candidates evaluate hiring processes so carefully, because they understand recruitment is usually a preview of operational experience underneath it. And most of the time, well, they're right. I think one of the most dangerous assumptions MSPs can make is believing candidates only evaluate salary, benefits, role scope. Yeah, these things matter, of course, but operational confidence matters too, massively. Candidates are constantly asking themselves, would working here feel stable? Would leadership feel emotionally present? Would communication exist? Would support exist? Would this environment feel sustainable long term? And recruitment answers those questions far earlier than businesses realize. That's why recruitment quality matters so much, because candidates judge businesses long before they ever join them. And those judgments shape hiring outcomes hugely. That's it for today's episode of The Wild Files. I have been very passionate. If this episode made you rethink how your MSP feels during recruitment, good, because candidates are paying attention to far more than you realize. And the MSPs attracting strong people long term are usually MSPs creating confidence consistently, not perfectly, consistently. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with another MSP leader who still thinks recruitment is only about filling vacancies. And if you want more conversations around hiring, leadership, retention, operational stability inside MSPs, make sure you subscribe. Until next time, stay intentional, stay structured, and as always, stay wild.